Great.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tech Niger FM. Today, we are going to be exploring a topic that sits at the center of global innovation, AI in fintech. I know people are all about AI, but what are the pros and cons in the fintech industry, in the fintech space, and what it truly takes to build intelligent, secure, and inclusive financial system that works in the real world. To unpack this, I'm joined by Emeka. We've been together for a while. Uh, he's a global engineering manager at Access, someone with deep understanding and experience in building and leading system at scale. Emeka, welcome to Tech Niger FM this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Before we dive into it, the topic that we have for today is about AI in global fintech, how to build intelligent and secure financial system. But before we go into that fully, can you just take us back where it all started from you? We want to know about you. What was the first system you built? So let's just take it from.
great. This is something I don't get to talk about a lot. But yeah, for me, software development has always been something uh, I've been super interested in from a young age, even when I didn't know what software development was, because I'm always the kind of young kid who always wanted to understand how system works, when you are always breaking things and taking it apart and see how it works. And then I started working in a cyber cafe where I then, started having experience with computers, understanding them, teaching people about how computer works, and also even repairing computers at some point. And my professional career started when I got into college. I was out one day and I saw a couple of young people, with their laptop, and I, what are they doing, And I was like, oh, let me look at what they're doing. And they were learning, basic programming language, and somebody was teaching, and I was like, let me learn this stuff. And I just got into it, and that's how I, started software development. So in regards to like professional career part, I worked as a front end. I started as a front end building UIs because that was like the easiest, lowest hanging fruit for me at that point. I was able to build something, visualize it, I'll build different type of UI with all these random bouncing effects, and I'll be happy. And I'll be, talking about it with people, be proud of, just, super excited to see your local host websites running with all the animation in the world, all the CSS effect that is unnecessary, just slamming it, using it for using its sake. And then, I was lucky enough to get introduced to someone who wanted to build like a website for a law firm. And, I applied for the job, I got the job. And even to today, the person is now my personal lawyer, the person I, got my first job from. And, moving on, I was able to then, work for people working as a full stack engineer, then, back end engineer, then, lead. And now I find myself being an engineering manager responsible for technology stack end to end. So that's like a short story.
Wow, it's actually one. Thank you for telling us that. Let's move to the question for some of the conversation. We've been hearing AI, and it's actually in a lot of sectors, leveraging to do one or two things. But this fintech industry, because it actually deals with money related, so we need to be very, very sure of what you're actually doing. So, from your own perspective, how is AI actually changing fintech today beyond all these headlines on LinkedIn here and there? So, how do you think AI is actually changing fintech today?
Yeah, so AI is having a tremendous effect, particularly in fintech, because at the core of fintech, it's all about financial records, customer data, representation of value, who owns what, who has access to what, and when that particular person is able to access what, and stuff like that. And if you think about AI, is very good at understanding data, working with data, analyzing data, transforming data, we're able to pull out trends from data. So if you're combining these two things, you see that fintech is one of the places where you can really, really have like a great force multiplier from a business point of view. You're able to increase your business process, and then you're able to, generate revenue as a consequence of, early adoption for AI.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Just to a follow-up question to that, because in the fintech, there are a whole lot of, can I call it modus? Or let me use that word modus, where we can talk about fraud detection, credit scoring here and there. So, I know you've talked about something related to that, but since we are talking more about AI in fintech, where do you see this AI? Where do you see it being used most in maybe fraud detection, credit scoring, a whole lot of things? But where do you see it being used most? Is it on the data stuff that you mentioned? Just to get more information regarding that.
Mhm. So the short answer is everywhere, right? But if you want to be specific, I would say it depends on where you want to maximize potential as a business. But really, AI needs to be everywhere. So the way I look at it is, when you think about fintech, is the entry point. What you do to get your customer into your business as a financial institution. If you are a digital banking, or you are a lender, or you are, a basic fintech. And then there's the middle layer where this is where your business operation runs. What you do as a business, either you are lending to them, you are allowing them move money from A to B, or you're allowing them save. And then there's the exit point where after you have been able to do all these things, how do you offer the customer? Either you are transmitting information to them, or you are storing information securely in your data warehouse. You can definitely use AI in all of these points, right? So I'm going to pick like from the onboarding phase. A typical use case for the onboarding is, let's say you want to use Bank X and you want to sign up. What most banks still do today is when you come to sign up, you provide your username, password, and the key information. Then, depending on their KYC policy, you get onboarded and you get a tier one account.
Okay.
What happens to you as a customer is that you are limited to the amount of transactions you can perform. Let's say that you will be tied to, let's say, 50,000 naira because you're still on tier one. You need a human being to go to the back end and say, let's look at all the information that a maker has provided, and let's see if it is good enough for us to increase your transaction limit. Now, if you bring AI into this picture to solve this problem, what AI can do for us is AI can quickly cross-reference customer data from KYC platforms, your BVN, your NI, use your business policies. For example, we can say if your phone number matches your BVN, if your picture matches your BVN and your NIN, you can be on tier two, right? If your BVN matches your address, your photo, and your utility bill, we can put you on tier three. And all of these things can happen automatically. Right now, imagine a case where you are running a campaign, you spent like 40 to 50 million naira on a campaign because you're a new startup fintech product and you want to onboard a lot of people. And you have a case where you have 2,000 people signing up at the same time, right? The bottleneck in this case becomes, how do I get a human being to look at all the people I've just onboarded and approve them and ensure that I have like a 99.9% accuracy when it comes to making sure that we are following our KYC policies. So you can see where AI comes to shine. If you give that information to AI can do it in less than 1 minute, right? AI will just match the data, follow your policy, and can be as automatic as you allow it, right? Now, you will also have to think about where are the downside, because if you are thinking about AI can be like a double-edged sword, right?
That's true.
You always have to think about the pros and cons of this stuff. So you don't want AI to have like data mismatch and then, apply policies that might come back to hurt you as a business. So what do I mean? So for example, let's say again, using the institution as a key example, where you have like tier one, 50,000, tier two, 500,000, and let's say tier three, unlimited, or let's say 3 million. If you're going to move a user from tier one to tier two, it can be relatively easy. You can allow AI automatically do that, right? But if you want to go from tier one to tier three, maybe you want to have a mix of manual and automatic process where the AI validates and the AI can recommend what you need to do moving forward, right? Like, hey, I've reviewed this guy. Please give me the permission to, take him to tier three, because he's going to be able to access large funds at that point. Yeah. So that's one great use case.
Yeah, so there are a few things that you've actually mentioned in this conversation which have answered a few of my questions. One, okay, before that, based on your explanation, I think you've done a breakdown of how some systems currently how they are doing their onboarding, which is very, very nice because I've seen one what's it called? Requirement about a system, financial system, that is actually the same thing you explained that they want to do from tier one. They have a maximum amount of transaction that you can perform. So I think you've also done a bit of product related thing based on that. Well, I would say because you are like a manager, so you have understanding about that. But from what you mentioned just now, I think there are big differences between traditional fintech system and, like, let me call it like AI driven system nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So it means there are a whole lot of things that traditional system need to buckle up in this particular AI driven system. So, but just to ask a follow up question regarding that, this AI of the thing that we are talking about now, it actually introduced new risk. So how should fintech companies think about security in their AI system?
That's a great question. I mean, the way I like to see it, just to support, what you've said is, you have a system where, or rather as an institution, if you're a traditional institution, you have to start thinking about transitioning into an AI first or a software solution driven architecture first, because that's the way finance is going these days. You have to leverage technology to be able to power everything that you are doing. Okay, so to answer your question, sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
So AI introduced new risk. How
Mm.
should tech companies now, especially for the traditional one and also the one that are not traditional, how should they think about security in the AI system? How should they think about security? Because things are moving fast. So how should they think about security? Yeah.
Okay, some of the things that you should be considering as regards to security is data integrity. I think that's one. And also the data integrity and how well your AI can be protected against manipulation, right? So I'm going to give you an example of lending scenario where we have people who lend to customers, right? So what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to say, my name is Emeka as a customer. I want to lend X amount, right? During this process, one of the key problems that, traditional lenders face today is how are they able to match the intent of the customer with the request of the customer. So what do I mean by that? So I'll paint a scenario. Let's say I want to take a loan and I want to take a loan of 1 million naira. And the loan, I know that I just want to use this loan to turn up in the club, right? But I'm not going to come to the bank and tell them, please give me a 1 million naira loan so I can go and, flex in the club. I'm not going to do that, right? Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lie on my application, right? And I'm going to misrepresent my financial records and my intent at the point of application. And what traditional system or banking or bankers do, or lenders rather, do now is that they manually go through this process on a case by case basis. So if you want to use AI in this point, you need to be able to think about how can AI, match this financial record, cross match it with the intent, and then give you a comfortable enough recommendation from a credit standpoint, right? And then the security factor there is how are you able to also ensure that you have a, I would like to use the word dynamic policy, where you are constantly updating your policy. You are constantly watching it because people will always stress test your system. They always come, to always see how they can combine attacks or combine application in the case of the loan to be able to see if they can get higher payouts or stuff like that. So you always have to ensure that you just don't deploy an AI system and just, give it static parameters. You have to give it dynamic parameters in the sense that it needs to be actively learning what are your business policies, what are the threats you are seeing from those business policies, and it needs to be updating the way it responds to each of the customer requests at every given point in time. So this is one of, we have multiple use cases, but this
Yeah.
is one of the areas where, you have to really think through it. Yeah.
For trust, because when you're building a system, not even only AI based or AI powered system now, you need to build trust. Customer that want to use your application will be rest assured. We've heard about different cases of solutions here and there, especially in Nigeria, where you put your money and after few months, the company is gone. Your money is gone. So
Yeah.
building trust is actually one of the key. So my question just go like this: that how do you build trust before AI? Even building trust is still shaking. Now that
Hmm.
we AI, how do you build trust in AI decision? Because you mentioned something earlier on that based on the data, then AI can give us like percentage of maybe whatsoever they've submitted, they can grade them based on that. So how do we build trust in AI decision?
So that's a great question. And I would like to use another example because, again, like I said, in fintech is like fish in the water. The possibility is just based on how far you can see the problem, right? You are limited by the types of problem you have to solve, how big you are, and what you face on a day-to-day basis. So let's look at in the context of fraud. People, hackers will penetrate your bank account and they're able to then move, funds to a third-party bank account and they exit through that case. And let's see how AI can help us. So a typical scenario is you got attacked. I don't think getting attacked is something you can avoid, right? If you're a financial institution, you are online, you have an infrastructure, people will constantly, you know, try to always probe your system. You can always make it secure, but they are always going to be trying, and you have to be always, it's a cat and rat. So they try, you patch it, they try, you patch it. So, but let's get to the point where there's an incident where, they've gotten into your system and now they're able to access accounts and they're able to move money, right? If we bring AI into the picture, or before I go to that example, let's even talk about what they do. So a typical scenario was I will attack the bank and I'll get access to a particular account and then I'll move money from that account into a single source. Or I can even move the money into multiple sources, depending on, how I'm feeling that day, right? Now, the difficulty here from a traditional standpoint is it puts the organization in a position where they are reactive instead of being proactive. So what do I mean by being, reactive versus proactive? Being reactive is first you either wait for the customer to report that they are getting, erroneous bank transfers, or maybe your operational team are even able to spot that. That's usually not the case, by the way, right? And then they are able to report that, and then you start flagging, and then you start going to the corresponding bank where the money left, and then you're trying to PND the account so that they don't spend it. Now, all of these things can take between 5 to 10 hours to happen, right? And the attackers will continue to move the money from point A to point B because they don't use one bank, right? They
Yeah.
can move from bank A to bank B, then bank C, then they keep moving. You understand?
Yeah.
So it's difficult for you to stop them and catch them. Now, if you are adopting AI, this will now give you a better posture where you can be proactive. And what do I mean by being proactive? So imagine if you have like an AI agent that is part of your operational team or an AI agent that watches your financial activity from a global standpoint. Like it's looking at everything, not just one account. It's looking at the entire financial activity that is going on and is able to identify trends. Like, for example, a customer, an account A is trying to transfer to an account B in the middle of the night, right? And we've never transacted before, right? And that same account is also trying to transact the same kind of amount because, when they are attacking like that, they attack with specific amount. They'll try like, okay, 1 million, 10
Yeah.
million, and they'll keep doing like that. So AI can analyze this pattern because if a human being also looks at the log of the attack, they will see that okay, this is how they were able to do it. But let's apply this type of log into our logic and present it to the AI so that the AI can learn from it. And then when the AI sees this, is able to flag the account. So the AI can automatically PND the account, meaning that even if they are able to move the money from A to B, if your account is already PND, there's nothing you can do. Do you understand? And this is the beauty of the AI system, right? This is the beauty of the AI system because at that point, the AI agent, the system, depending on how you deploy these things, they're already there watching day and night. They are not sleeping like your operational team. They are able to take action based on your predefined business logic, right? And they are able to take those action very fast. So in terms of downside, like I said, there's always downside to every policy. You want to make sure that your policy is strong enough that you are not PNing legitimate transaction. There's always risk for that because you might have somebody going to the club and spending a lot of money. Like I said, I like going to the club. I want to buy bottles, right? So, and I'm doing that obviously in the middle of the night. So your AI needs to be able to say, okay, how do we know if this is, can be exempted from our rules? If it's a club, account, we can then, exempt them and stuff like that. So you always have to think through these things because if you are not thinking about it and you are giving the AI total leeway, then you can have backlash either from a customer satisfaction point of view, or from a policy standpoint. Yeah. So that those are some of the things that we need to think about constantly.
Thinking on my head, right? Because there are some ideas that you're actually talking about to our listeners around the world. Emeka has already mentioned few things, which I believe traditional banks, not only traditional bank alone, even all this fintech industry that are just coming on board. I think the AI agent that Emeka mentioned now is good thing for you to figure out and incorporate into your system because I believe there was a time that one of the unicorn in Nigeria was attacked and
Mm-hmm.
millions, billions was moved. So if we have something like this, I think it's going to be easier for them to analyze patterns, trend, and the likes, and they'll be able to cut off those kind of things before people even get to know. So I
Yeah.
think it's one of the things that not only in the fintech space, because when they move your data, that data is gone. So
Mm-hmm.
you just need to be aware. For example, it has nearly happened to me before, and that's part of what my company normally does, right? But I've understand that particular pattern. It's not even about fintech. Like all these spam messages,
Mm-hmm.
just for us to be secure, right? Because we handle a lot of data. So they normally send those kind of email around 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And there was a time I just noticed that. And I have clicked those links before. After you click those links, they will just send you, what's it called? Training. Go and do training.
Mm-hmm.
So I found out pattern that they will never send me all this kind of email during the day. It is night. Anytime I saw this kind of email like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the title of the email is always very juicy, like something that you definitely want to click on. Yeah, there's always train people on that constantly. And we are always running tests to see the level of compliance from an organizational standpoint. Yeah. But you said something that was interesting that I would like to comment on, which is traditional, fintech or banking. I want to make a prediction that in 2035, there will be no such thing as traditional, banking. Everybody will be technology focused because there's no way you are going to be able to function as a financial institution if you are not technology first, right? I know you have legacy practices banking where people go and study accounting and all those kind of stuff. But to be able to reach your customer, you have to think technology first. Then the banking should now, you have to be a technology first company. And I think that's something that, all financial institution needs to start paying attention to. And we have a lot of people in Nigeria that are start, they understand this and they are working towards that, making sure that they are working on their technology. They are not focusing on having like a brick and mortar kind of business approach and stuff like that. Yeah, it's kind of interesting and exciting.
Yeah. So because back then there was, let me just put it like this. We're building one solution for one of the top bank in Nigeria. And it's not even a financial solution, right? But to be able to get access to their stuff is actually hard. And especially integrating with their AD here and there is actually hard, right? So just to buttress what you mentioned, if all these traditional bank are not playing on a global scale of all these AI thing, I think they would definitely be left behind, and they are already losing customer,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
it's good because you can't compare them, all these traditional banks, with the likes of all this Money Point, OPay.
Mhm.
There is one I didn't remember
The
the
reason
next.
why these guys are winning the market space is purely based off of technology, the speed
Yes,
of technology, the simplicity of their technology. They pour a lot of investment into it. And then when you are interviewing these customers, you notice that the only competitive edge they have really is the ease of use of that technology and the
yes.
roles it plays in ensuring that the customer experience is exactly how they want it to be. That's why they are, making a lot of money from what they do, really.
Yeah. Okay.
And you also mentioned something going back to the traditional banking thing. And if you look at the rise of open banking, when you mentioned if they want to be able to play at the global stage, very soon financial inclusion is not just going to be something we are speculating about or thinking about. It's something that is going to be front, right, of center of the way people bank, because you might want to be able to access credit in a foreign country. You need to be able to plug in your financial records. You need to have some form of open banking that is cross border also, not just payment cross border, but like financial open banking. Your banking data should be cross border. Like you want to buy a car in America, for example, you just recently migrated there. Instead of waiting for you to get your credit score up, you can also leverage the credit score you have in Nigeria, because guess what? It's all about finance, right? It's all about
Yes.
how you spend money. How can Nigerian banks now play? And if you have a scenario where there's a willingness to do that, but as a financial institution, you cannot provide me that service, and I'll just migrate away from you and go to the people who can. Because if I'm going to go to America and I want to maybe get a mortgage and they need to see my credit score, I'm going to go and use a bank that can give me that ability to be able to represent myself, financially to these people so that I get the credit and stuff like that. So again, you have to be AI and technology first. You have no choice.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah. You just don't have choice.
you don't
You
have a
just have,
choice,
because
or you will not exist.
see, though we are, let me just say this before I move to my next question. There is still one solutions that I don't know, maybe they've changed, but there is still one solution that some of this bank use. I didn't remember the name again. That is actually hard for them to move away from. I didn't remember the name, but the system may even hold, right? So if if things are not moving, if they are not actually improving on, I'm sorry. I'm
Hmm.
sorry for those parts. Yeah. So my next question, right, is about you. You've moved from different stages in life. From, like you mentioned, from the cyber cafe stuff down to front end, down to full stack. Now as an engineering manager, how do you basically guide teams? You've mentioned few things to people that are listening to us, that will still listen to this particular podcast, they can reach out to you. But how do you guide teams that are building this system now? If you want to, I know where you're working is a global space, and I'm sure you are currently you are going to be using AI for sure. So, but
Mhm.
if you want to guide teams that are building something like AI system, how are the things that or what are the things that you're actually going to do regarding that?
I think for me, it always starts by understanding what are the stakeholder requirements. So a stakeholder requirement can also be the problem you are trying to solve for a particular industry, a particular reason. You have to always align with that key stakeholder requirement. This is what we want to be able to do from a business standpoint. We want to be able to increase revenue, security, increase developer experience, increase stability. Once you are able to understand this as a leader, as an engineering manager, then it now becomes how are you able to then accommodate this within the structure that already exists, especially when you have like an existing ERP or a system that is already in the market. Because, there's a difference between building from scratch and then maintaining a particular solution while you grow it. So for me, you always have to communicate requirements, flesh out requirements, and educate the team on the importance of why you are doing what you are doing. So this is a very big factor for me. It's important that every time you come to a sprint meeting, you have to understand the why we are doing so. It's not just come, listen to the requirement and go and become a code monkey. You have to understand why, because when you understand why, you're also able to contribute, you know, you're also able to contribute to whatever the feedback is supposed to be, whatever the implementation is supposed to be. And then as a manager, also, you're able to gauge, the level of compliance and alignment you have from a team based point of view. You're able to understand, do my people understand the direction we are moving towards and, the importance of it? And do I need to still, invest more time in either educating them, and, walking them through everything we want to do. So if you're able to, get these bases down, then I believe the journey becomes, relatively simple for you to be able to, execute on your particular mission.
Thank you so much for that. Uh,
Thank you.
um, uh, just to follow up, because you are the more reason why I'm mentioning this is because you are playing on the game of global stage, not
Hmm.
a global stage again. So there are a couple of things that in Nigeria, to be precise, we think we are doing rightly, but on a global stage is actually we are far, far, far from. Yeah, we are far, far, far from it.
Yeah.
So building globally scalable system
Hmm.
while adapting a local reality might be difficult.
Hmm.
So, own perspective, let me put it like that. In your own perspective, how should teams approach this particular thing? Your own perspective.
Okay. So first, in our own defense locally, we are trying our best because you know that we do not have access to the same capital, investment, even infrastructure. We don't have all of those things. And we are still mirroring the level of expectation you expect from, all of these countries like the US, UK, and people that have all of that. Even when you think about it from a job market point of view, most of all these global teams that you see are heavily augmented by Nigerian talent. So it's not like we don't have that talent to be able to do this. It's just that when we are building for ourselves, we don't have the resources we need to put in place to make all of this happen. So I just want to say that in our own defense. Okay. So, but to answer the question, sorry, remind me what the question is.
Yeah.
What I just said just make me.
I'm going to ask this question and also a follow-up question. Okay.
Yes.
But that follow-up question will just be like an advice. All right.
Okay. Advice.
So the
Okay.
question is building globally scalable system
Mm-hmm.
while adapting to local reality is difficult. Right?
It's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult. We want to play on the global market,
Mm-hmm.
but we only have local. We need to be sure that we need to we need to understand within ourselves that we can only the reality is basically local, but we want to play on the global
Yeah.
stage.
Global. Yes.
How should teams in your own perspective, how should we approach this particular thing?
Okay, I think the way I would advise anybody to approach this is, they say the problem in is in sales is what to sell, who to sell, and what to produce. I think if I'm quoting that right. When you are building something that when you are building something that I'm not sure I got that right, but something like that. It's always like the three Y's or three C's. I'm not sure. So when you are building something in our market, chances are it's quite different from a product market fit point of view, from a user base point of view. And then if you're trying to then take that solution for like the global audience, you then need to understand how you can translate that um, uh, properly for that particular market. And I'll take something like Netflix, for example. If you're building something for Netflix and you want to make it global, right? You first of all have to think about the user base. Who is going to pay for this, right? And what is the average income? Do they have spare cash to be able to pay $5 a month for this? Then you need to then think around all of this situation. And then if you say this particular Netflix solution is still going to be viable in other markets, then you then need to think about, okay, if this solution can work cross-border, what about the content and the service offering? Because if you are going to be showing an American audience a movie, higher budget, bigger spend, you understand, then the subscription is going to be higher. You get what I mean, right? And then from a local point of view, you know that, not low quality budget from a spending point of view, lower spend, and then lower subscription fee. And that way you are able to decide, what part of your business you need to roll out based on, the different geolocations and what you need to do. It's a very tricky thing. It's a very tricky thing. I would say first, understand the market you want to build for first and meet that requirement. Then look for global opportunities you can plug into the system and sell separately, right? That's always the best thing. And if the Nigerian market doesn't, you can't have like a good penetration in the Nigerian market. Just focus on the American market because at the end of the day, you want to be able to make revenue. So you focus on the market that makes you, but you are able to explore. Even in Nigeria, you have solutions that will penetrate the Nigerian market and will not penetrate, like let's say, in Ghana or another part of the country, right? Another part of Africa. So you have to be able to structure your solution in that regards. MTN has mobile money in Ghana where they use SMS primarily for payment. In fact, they don't have banks like we do, right? So if you go to Ghana and you want to build like a microfinance bank, a payment, it's not going to work. You waste your money, right? If you come to Nigeria, you know that we don't use SMS primarily for payment. We use, mobile applications with transfer. So if I'm going to say, okay, how can I still work in both jurisdictions? I'm going to find the balance, the intersection between these two businesses to say, okay, this is a complementary service that can be off-ramped, either from mostly what people do is cross-border payment, how it can still, function through SMS, and that SMS data can also still be used in Nigeria, and you are creating values. So these are the things that you really need to think about it because it's unique for every type of business, like I've talked about. Some investment might direct and make the decisions for you. What the market is used to would direct the decision for you. Some is just, profitability, how much you can make in this market vis-a-vis your investment from a product standpoint. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that wonderful explanation across global stage. You mentioned that I'm going to just follow up because you mentioned something regarding bottleneck
Mhm.
for startups, companies in Nigeria. Uh, just an advice. In my previous episodes, I've also asked someone to just give an advice to the government. It's possible that when we are posting this on newspaper, we can see one or two people that can read it and maybe push it to the government to basically implement. What are the
Mhm.
things that you believe government can do regarding infrastructure to help startup? Yes, it's actually because there are a lot of. I know the reason why you're laughing. I know, I understand. But what are the things, especially infrastructure wise, that I believe they are doing something, but we are not there yet. But
Yes.
we need to move fast. Things are moving fast. I will have mentioned something on this episode, but I won't mention it. Is about the current war. You understand the current war glowing
Yeah.
global, and we don't have
Yes.
any infrastructure. If anything like that come down to Nigeria, we don't have any infrastructure for that. Especially, so let's just come back to startup. What are the things that you believe government can do to help the startup regarding infrastructure in Nigeria? We want to play global. Local
Hmm.
is hiring, but we believe government can do one or two things that can help the startup in Nigeria. So what do you think the government can do?
Man, see, so many
I know,
things.
I
The
know.
short answer is hire me as the minister of is he information technology or finance. Give me $100 billion and I'll fix the problem in a year. You know, that's the short feedback. That's what the government can do. But yeah, to be more serious, there's a lot of issue here. We can talk about this for days. You see, infrastructure issue, access to capital. You have to make capital cheap, or you even have to make capital accessible, cheap and accessible, so that people can continue to take risk that will then benefit the economy, right? You have to give us good infrastructure. Even if you look at like licensing point of view, for example, if I want to play in a particular market, from a Nigerian point of view, Nigeria is not very, what's the word I'm looking for now? Nigeria is not very friendly, right? You need to make sure that you have everything you need before you can start getting licensing. If, for example, if you want to be a lender, right? Um, you're either going for the state lender or you are going for the higher ones, which is in the millions. And then you have a young entrepreneur who doesn't even have 1 million naira to his name, right? But can build solutions and he wants to be able to test out this product in the market. You can't do that. My own recommendation in this regard is imagine a case where we have government programs where startup can join and you don't have to worry about licensing. You don't have to worry about some of all these key business documentations that takes your time. Focus on building the business and the government will partner with you for a certain period of time. So what do I mean? Imagine if I'm building a lending application. Yes, licensing is important. There are a lot of, guardrails and things that you put in place to ensure that there is no fraud and whatnot, all those kind of things. But if you're partnering with the government and the government is backing you for your particular experiment on your startup, right? The government is playing a role in your growth. What I need to focus on at that point is just making sure that my solution works and I break through a particular threshold. And then when I break through a particular threshold, the government already knows. For example, okay, we're going to support you on your app, let you build whatever you want to give, put you under a provisional program that allows you, generate between 1 million to 10 million per year. And then, we are going to be reviewing and watching everything you are doing. And once you cross to 50 million, then you can now be required to do things the right way. See, doing this alone, you will see explosion in a lot of products, competition in the market. A lot of nice, good innovation is going to come out because this is one of the big problems that we have. You cannot go into any sector, financing, banking, payment. You need a huge amount of capital. Even if you are thinking about, cross-border payment, you need a huge amount of capital. And I don't think it's right? Because we do not live in a society where money is cheap. Somebody was saying that Africans need to get better at building unicorns. And then someone said, you should not build a unicorn in Africa. You should build a camel because camel can survive without water. A unicorn, if a unicorn is not in AC apartment, it's going to die. Right? You need to build a camel that you don't have investment for a year and the startup is still going, right? Something that you can fund yourself. So we need to build camels, not unicorns, because we exist in an harsh environment where all of the things that we are looking at, look at Amazon, for example, 20 years. no profit, and people were still investing. How many Nigerian company can you point to that have run for 20 years without investment? And look at Jumia. I don't know if I should be mentioning them, but look at Jumia, for example. They are struggling. Look at Patricia. All of these things, again, investment. People would make mistake, but investment gives you that runway to fix your mistake and get you back on track. You understand? And also make sure that, you're doing the right thing and whatnot. From a government point of view, these are one of the two things that we can do. And another thing we can also do is we can educate people. We can educate people. If you build engineering capacity in Nigeria, and you are able to put that as a national priority where you are churning out engineers, cybersecurity experts, you are making sure that people are getting trained in these important technology skills that are used on the global market. It's going to be easy for you to see two people come together to form a startup, right? It's going to be easy for you to see. This is one of the things that you like. I like about the Israelis, right? So when you join the military, you either go into active, roles, or you join their tech part, and then you see a lot of the people who went through that program. They are like CEOs, like Wix was built like by an Israeli. If you see most of all the, VPN technology, all those experience they have, and when people leave, they are able to go and start creating, billion-dollar companies. The final thing the government can do for us, and I think maybe I mentioned this earlier, is to give us access to investment. Let's have money. And I know Nigeria, again, is a very rigid place. Like I've said, I'm not saying transfer 1 million naira or 50 million naira to my bank account. Even if you're not giving me the money in cold cash, give me grants. You see what they do in America, where America will subsidize EV. If you are in electric vehicle, you don't pay particular. We need to have stuff like that in Nigeria, where even if we're not getting like cold cash or money in our bank account, we have grants where we can, you know, use to access the technology that we need, so that we are able to run this stuff, and pay people, because ultimately we are going to be generating value, and that value is going to directly benefit the economy and also grow the economy. There's huge potential in fintech, and we building products that can serve the global economy. We don't even necessarily need to build product for ourselves to use. We just need to study a market, US market, the UK, Canada, build the technology here, serve that audience, and then difference in that can give us a lot of. Imagine if you hire somebody in the US, you're paying 4,000 a month, and then that same solution you are paying 1,000 for. I want to believe that it's still going to be relatively a good thing for anybody earning that type of amount, especially when you are entry level engineer or you are mid level engineer. It's going to, encourage you to want to do more and also help the economy. So this is part of my advice, in a nutshell for the government.
Thank you. You've actually mentioned a lot of things.
Yeah.
So put some of these things as part of the news that we're going to post on newspaper. Hopefully, we can hear good news from what
Hmm.
you've mentioned. I believe
Yeah.
uh, uh, I think you've actually hit the nail, right? So let's hope for the best. Our time is almost gone.
Okay.
Before we round up, looking at your journey, right? Because you mentioned a lot of things. What has shaped your approach to building system at scale before we call it a wrap for the episode? Looking at your journey, what has shaped your approach to building system at scale?
Hmm. I'll be honest with you. There are two factors that drive me majorly. One is I want to make a lot of money,
Yeah,
right? And then the
definitely.
second thing is I like to play God. So when I talk about playing God, is I like to think about problems and I want to be able to solve them to the best of my ability, even surpassing my ability. So I can think about any space, like fintech, for example, and identify a particular problem and say, how do you solve this problem? Why do we continue to have this problem? Think about what these guys in Paystack did. You know, it was very difficult. I'm not sure if you understand how difficult it was for you to get payment. If you want to pay for any single thing, you have to go to the bank to queue. That was like a life invention is a life-saving invention. Being able to sit down and think about a solution to a problem that can touch people's life. Money aside, the fact that you wake up every day and businesses are running on your own solution is, something that gives me joy, right? That reach, that impact gives me joy. And that's why what I mean by playing God, because it's like I think about something and I can do it. That's the closest you can to playing God. And being a software developer is the closest thing you can to having superpowers, because imagine building a robot that can fly, drones that can do
Yeah.
different. There's nothing you can't do. The question is the technology mature enough? And do you understand the problem enough to be able to build for it? So if those two things align in your lifetime, you are definitely going to be able to do that, right? So this is my own, that's my own drive. That's my drive. That's what keeps me going. That's what makes me put a lot of, time and emphasis in understanding different type of problems. Because if you want to play God, you cannot just know one thing. You have to be able to understand multiple things. Your experience must cut across fintech, healthcare, lending, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. One last thing for engineers,
Mm-hmm.
listeners all around the world. I just want you to maybe in one sentence or two, one thing that we can use to close this conversation that our listeners can key into regarding this particular topic that you've explained in depth today. Just one last thing, then we can call it a wrap from you.
Let me think. So
Just go.
one word quote, correct? I would say, especially because of the last part we've talked about, I would say be aggressive in your belief, right? Especially if you're a Nigerian founder, be aggressive in your belief, because um, you might be wrong, you might be right. And even if you are wrong, right, it will be a learning experience for you to apply in your new endeavors, right? And if you are right, there's going to be a lot of potential, like market potential, that you are going to reap for. And the more weird your idea is, the more rigid you should be about it, because it means nobody is thinking about it, because either they think it's stupid or not, viable, but there's going to be immense potential for you to benefit from understanding and seeing it through. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Emeka, for this wonderful conversation. It has been
Thank you for having
insightful.
me.
It has been insightful, very grounded. I was able to even uh, understand quite numbers of things from you today. Thank you for sharing your experience and perspective with us today. To all our listeners, I believe you will have picked one or two things valuable from this particular conversation. Make sure you follow us on Tech Nigeria FM. We are almost on every platform: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and the likes. Until next time, keep building aggressively, like Emeka mentioned. I
Yeah.
will use that word. Keep building aggressively. I believe your investment is around the corner. If you're in Nigeria, for example, your investment is around the corner. But just keep building. Believe in the idea, and I believe soon you have that
Hmm.
investment. Thank you so much, everyone, for this wonderful episode. Until next time, keep building
Thank you,
aggressively.
guys. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
All right. Bye.